Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies featuring the Dungeons & Dragons Flavors of the Multiverse cookbook. I was actually really happy with how the tavern noodles turned out last week, so now we're on to the entree, Rothe Steak, I should say. Yes, this is a little bit later because this is going to be dinner tonight. So let's start off by telling the story. 1 silver piece is an extraordinary bargain for the Rothe Steak at the Yawning Portal, even if it is one of the more expensive things on the menu, served sizzling hot right out of the skillet, with just a hint of garlic and garden spices. Rothe Steak is a carnivore's delight and the perfect protein for a triumphant or aspiring adventurer. Along the Sword Coast, you can easily source fresh Rothe that is either farm-raised or wild game. There are devotees of both. Why bother with any vegetable sides? You won't get to them with this slab of meat to tackle. Well, let's go find out how good this is. The ingredients are waiting for us in the kitchen, so let's move it, or at the table, so let's move in that direction. In order to make this recipe, we're going to need, the recipe calls for 2 1-pound boneless strip steaks. I'm using 1 because I'm making dinner for myself. Kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper. A tablespoon of neutral oil, I'm using veggie oil. 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. 2 garlic cloves crushed and peeled. Whenever I use garlic, I'm using minced garlic. You'll want about a teaspoon per clove you're using. And 8 large sprigs of fresh thyme or rosemary. I'm going to use prepackaged thyme. Let's move into the kitchen and start putting this recipe together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our steak and we're going to pat it dry with paper towel. Which I'm going to see to that off camera. Okay. We'll get it on a plate and we'll bring that in shot. I'll give my hands a quick wash. The next thing we're going to do, you can probably see that I've got the kosher salt just barely in shot, now it's more in shot. And I've got the pepper now in shot as well. So as you can probably guess where we're going with this, we're going to season generously with the salt and pepper on both sides and along the edges. So we'll start off with the salt. And you do want to be generous with this. I'm hoping it's not going to be, oh my God, look at the mountain of salt generous. Doesn't seem to be too bad, though. Okay. I'm not really getting to the sides that well, but I don't think there's really much I can do about that. Well, I'm trying to do a little bit here. But yeah, it's not a great job of it. Okay. I'll give my hands another quick wash before I start handling electronics. Because now what I want to do, and of course I brought the paper towel in here, now what I want to do is I want to set this, I want to place the steak on a plate and we're going to let that rest at room temperature for an hour. So I'm setting a timer for that. And I'm going to explain what's going to happen here because everything's going to move fairly quickly, and I don't want to torture you guys with just watching the steak set at room temperature. So here's what's going to... actually, that can go in the fridge until I'm ready for it. That's the 3 tablespoons of butter that I'm putting back in the fridge. So here's what's all going to happen. I'm going to turn the camera off for about an hour. So we'll come back after the skillet's been sitting over the heat for about 7 minutes. The plan is I'm going to turn it on for the last 7 minutes of the steak coming to room temperature. I'm going to set that over medium heat for 7 minutes. The pan may smoke a little bit, but this is behavior as intended. At that point, I'm going to adjust the heat to high. Then I'm going to add the veggie oil and swirl it to coat the bottom of the pan. Then we'll add the steaks and cook, flipping every 30 seconds until a pale golden crust begins to form on both sides, and that should take about 3 to 4 minutes. So we'll come back when we're over at the skillet ready to put the steak in. I just checked the timer on the steak coming to room temperature, and we've still got a little bit over half an hour left. I literally just got this delivery in probably about 3 minutes ago from Noble Knight Games. So let's crack it open and see what we've got in here. I've already started cracking it a little bit before I was like, wait a second, I've got plenty of time for this. We can go ahead and crack this open and see what we've got in here. Just getting the tape residue off. There we are. And we can get that out of the way. Okay. We need a little bit more space here. Probably a little bit up here as well. Yep. Okay. Okay, that was the last sheet of the label, so that can hit the bin. Easy does it, pulling toward the camera. I'm gonna move that just out of the way a touch. And the first thing that we're greeted by in here, holy cow, this is heavy, is we're greeted by my first World War I war game, Western Front Ace by Compass Games, designed by Gregory Smith and Ian Cooper. I've made no bones about the fact that I really like Gregory Smith as a designer of these war games. I really like that narrative-heavy style in these games. Take a quick look at the back. When one has shot down one's first, second, or third opponent, then one begins to find out how the trick is done. Manfred von Richthofen. Western Front Ace, The Great War in the Air, 1916 to 18, is a solitaire, tactical level game which places you in command of a scout fighter aircraft during World War I. The player may choose one of 7 different nationalities to fly for, and can be based from one of many bases in along the French trench lines or in Italy. Western Front Ace is based on the popular, action-packed Night Fighter Ace game system by Gregory M. Smith, and is his third game in the series, with a strong narrative around the pilot as you look to increase your prestige, earn skills, and rise in rank through promotion and receive awards. We will definitely be digging into that later. The next thing we're greeted by in here is we're greeted by a game that Jester's been a big fan of, called Hit Z Road, my zombie game by, who is this by? LA Entertainment, looks like. And it looks like that's got setup on the back rather than a blurb of anything. So, okay, cool. Looks like it's about a trip across the country. Void fill out of here. Checking on the time once again. Still got plenty of time on the steak. And the last thing we're greeted by is another game from Jester that he had played. The Guild of Merchant Explorers by AEG. The Queen has sent out a call to the Guild of Merchant Explorers, asking brave adventurers to voyage to all corners of the Kingdom of Tegome. While the kingdom is flourishing, its maps have not yet been updated in some time, and its great cities have lost contact with one another. With your team of explorers, you will journey over rough seas, towering mountains, vast deserts, and lush grasslands to establish trade routes in between cities and discover new villages that have emerged. 45 minutes to play, 1 to 4 players, 10 plus, and simultaneous play. Now for that last one, I really like cartographers. So this is another game kind of in that vein of the map exploration, of the exploration games. But that's everything in that delivery from Noble Knight. We'll get that unboxed at some point. Probably after the LCS round. Probably the first Tuesday night unboxing after the LCS round is over. But that's everything in that delivery, so there's Hitsy Road and Western Front Ace. So now we'll come back in the kitchen when the skillet is when we're finally ready to go with the skillet. Yes, I do have the range hood going, and it's actually a cook's note to have you turn that on. So we are going to have that on, so there's probably going to be some smoke in here. So what I'm going to do, the timer's about to go off on the pan being over medium heat. We're going to adjust the heat to high, add the veggie oil, and swirl to coat the bottom of the pan. Then I'm going to put the steak in, and we're going to turn it every 30 seconds and cook it until a pale golden crust begins to form on both sides. Should take about 3 to 4 minutes, and I've got a 4-minute timer ready to go on my Apple Watch because I do want to see every 30 seconds. So, there's the timer. So now I'm going to add the oil. And I'm adjusting the heat to high. So I'm going to get the oil out of my way. And then I'm going to get an oven mitt over one of my hands. And we'll swirl that to coat the pan. Okay. Looks like we're all good here. So now we're going to put the steak in, as mentioned, and cook it flipping every 30 seconds. So here we go. Also, this process is going to move fairly quickly, so we're going to do the entire cook in real time. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add I've already put the steaks on one side of the skillet, so I'm going to add the butter to the other side, and I'm going to allow it to melt. Actually, I need to bring the heat down to medium high, yep. So I need to bring the heat down just a little bit. Now we're going to add the butter to the other side of the skillet and let it melt, and while I'm doing that, while the butter is melting, I'm going to go open another window. So bear with me while I do that. It's windy and knocking stuff over, but I would rather have that than smoke filling up the apartment. I mean, I'm going to get that anyway, but this will help at least mitigate it a little bit. So now we're going to add the garlic. I'm going to give the steak a quick flip here. Alright, so now we're going to add the garlic and the thyme to the butter. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, we'll give the steak another flip. Now I'm going to grab an oven mitt, get another timer ready. This one's going to be for 7 minutes. Here's, we're going to tilt the pan toward the butter while continuing to flip. We're going to baste the steak with the butter and the aromatics for about another 7 minutes. There we go. Okay. And I think because I chose a flipping this one-handed is not the easiest thing to do. So I think we'll have to settle for flipping this once a minute. So choosing a ridged pan was probably a bad idea on my part because it made it harder to get a good scoop on the butter garlic thyme mixture. As you can see, it is kicking off a hell of a lot of smoke. Like I said, that's why I opened the window in the living room by my desk, because I wanted to try to vent some of more of the smoke out. Technically, you're supposed to use an instant reach thermometer in here to check it, but since they gave me the time measurement, that's what I'm going to use. And I've got the timer going for 7 minutes on my Apple Watch. Like I said, I needed to see the second measurements for earlier in the recipe. And this will be the last flip coming up on the steak. Just looking at that breeze out the window where I've got the opened up. It's a good thing I didn't open the window in the game room, because I would have my 1985, I'd have game 1 of the ALCS flying everywhere, and I don't really particularly want that for obvious reasons. Mainly because once this gets uploaded, that's where we're going later tonight. And we're about 15 seconds away from being able to kill the heat for good here. Okay. So now we can kill the heat, and I'll get this off of the heat. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this off. I'm going to take the steak off. They did move it to a carving board, but I'm going to move it right to the plate. Right to the dinner plate. Then we'll tent that loosely with aluminum foil. We'll bring it over here for just a second. Then I'm going to cover it loosely with aluminum foil. Something like about that. And then we'll let that set for 10 minutes. We'll come back after the 10 minutes are up. Here's our first look at the finished product. I actually got most of the smoke out of the apartment already. While the breeze would be welcome during the taste test, the drapes flapping behind me would not be. So I decided to close the window for that. It is very windy out here today. But that's not relevant to what we're doing here. What we're doing now is we're taking this over to my desk for the taste test, and this is supposed to be dinner tonight. So, let's find out how it turned out. As I mentioned, I've got the steak right here, and this is supposed to be dinner tonight. So, let's find out how it went and see what I think. Now, if the apartment, you will have your place fill up with smoke. Unfortunately, that is behavior as intended. So do be aware of that. But here we go. It's actually pretty good. I think I would have noticed a bit more of the marinade if I wouldn't have chosen a ridged pan for the cook here. I thought that would help me out more, but it turns out that the ridges were actually a problem with trying to get the spoon in there to get enough of the liquid and the spices to be able to baste the steak. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with how the steak turned out. This is going to be dinner, but that is another episode of Mystical Munchies in the books. Next week we will be making the dessert, fig cakes. I've changed a couple times the dessert I want to make on Mystical Munchies, mostly with time being kind of an issue, since next week is going to be another group game day with my group at my game store. So I do want to keep that in mind. As for the games, later tonight we will be at Anaheim Stadium for Game 1 of the American League Championship Series between the Detroit Tigers and the California Angels. Jack Morris will be going for the Tigers, and Mike Witt will be going for the Angels. Tomorrow we're going to be playing inside the crease hockey, doing a third period test, but I'll hold off on the game until I go live with that. Wednesday, we're going to be playing Scythe Expeditions from Stonemeyer Games. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.
Thank you.